I'd like to share today, being Ekadashi, some ideas about sadhana. Why sadhana is important, what entails sadhana, before we move on to the concept of Ekadashi, why Ekadashi is observed as a vrata. Vrata is, you could say, a vow. Typically, the vrata for Ekadashi is one of fasting, of not eating, and I will explain what. Sadhana. There are three terms we must know. One is sadhya, sadhana, and siddhi. See, sadhya is what is, you could say, what has to be achieved. The final end, the end result to be achieved, what is to be obtained, is sadhya. Sadhana is the process, a means to by which finally that end is achieved. Now, in the process of attaining this end, there are siddhis. Siddhis are powers that will start manifesting. Now, one thing we must remember, that when we are speaking in terms of the mind, we have sadhana and siddhi. There is some, this is what the Yoga Sutra tells us. Whether Patanjali is speaking of Kriya Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, you look at the presentation where he says yama, niyama, asana, pranama, etc. For every component of the sadhana, there is a siddhi. In fact, for each of the yamas and niyamas, individual siddhis are given. Ahimsa pratishtayam tat sannidhau vairatyagaha. Satya pratishtayam kriya phalashrayatva. For everything, there is a corresponding benefit or an outcome. One thing we must remember is that sadhya, that which is to be attained, is already attained. It is already within us. What needs to be done? So therefore, when we speak of liberation of the soul or kaivalya, yes, we can understand that from the yoga perspective, that final state, kaivalyam, is what has to be achieved. But we must remember that that potential already exists within us. You only have to clear the vision. That is the sadhana. The vision that is obscured, that is clouded, preventing us from seeing the truth that is within. That vision has to be transformed through the process of sadhana. What has to be achieved has already been achieved. It is the nature of the self. But there is a distance. We are unable to realize. The mind, because of its kleshas, is not aware of the nature of the self, of its nature with regard to the self. Therefore, a sadhana. So you can understand literally a process of sadhana using the metaphor that I gave of removing the weeds, removing the pests. Anything that is a problem, that is countering our progress, has to be eliminated in a gentle manner, in a non-aggressive manner. At the same time, siddhis, all that is beneficial, has to be cultivated. Until such time, even those siddhis have to be left behind. That is the path. So you see that this requires great diligence, great discipline at every stage. And that extends, it starts from the physical all the way till the metaphysical, till the spiritual. And there are many methods. You have the Ashtanga Yoga as one pathway, Kriya Yoga as one pathway, Dhyana, Puja, Mantra Japa, all of these tapas, these are different pathways that will enable the gradual phased cleansing of the system as a whole. So what the quality of sadhana is, the nature of the process depends on what is the end, what is the final sadhya. Given that in the yoga path, the final sadhya is realization. The mind realizes for the first time its nature, its relationship to the Purusha. It realizes the truth of the Purusha. That becomes the process. That therefore it is not easy. It requires tremendous discipline. And we see that naturally Brahma Jnana or Atma Swarupa Jnana, or in other words, Purusha Jnana. This requires a sadhana where there has to be control, mastery of the senses, that is called Dhamma, mastery of the mind, because it's our mind that will constantly, the senses will pull, the mind will go behind. So we have to restrain the pulling of the senses. We also have to empower the mind to resist the pull. Both are necessary. So that is Shama. Then Viveka. Viveka is what that allows us to discriminate, discern between what is necessary, not necessary, what is transitory, non-transitory, what is permanent, what is non-permanent, what is the truth, and what is appearing to be a temporary truth. That clarity is called Viveka. Then there is also Vairagyam. Vairagyam is renunciation. That there is in the process, siddhis will accumulate in abundance, but not to own, not to possess, but to let go. Whether it is the material siddhis, material possessions, whether it is the ability to move into Swarga, heaven, or any siddhi for that matter, that is different. So they requires tremendous control. This sadhana naturally is different than the sadhana that you might engage in any other worldly task. You want to go from point A to point B, you might get into your car to make sure that there is enough fuel. And then you drive, you might have to navigate through traffic. If there is a, some diversion, you take the diversion, you reach. That is a different kind of a sadhana. The sadhana needed to earn a degree. Different, because it is finite. The knowledge that we are gaining is finite. It leads you to one point. This sadhana, the yogic sadhana, naturally is much higher. Therefore, the necessity for that amount of mental regulation, self-regulation. That is the story that the 9 days of Navaratri teaches us. We must remember that sadhana sthana, that where do you do the sadhana? In a place that is conducive. This is why at the very beginning I said, if for this course, try to use the same space as much as possible, because you are energizing that space through the sadhana. And so the next time you come to it, that space will receive you, because it has already absorbed the vibrations from your japa, from your dhyana, and that will keep aggregating. This is also why there are specific designated areas for sadhana, say like a matha, like an ashrama, or within a home, a tranquil, quiet space where there is no distraction from anything outside. This is also why forests or mountains or by the ocean, these are places not for tourism, but they are places where the naturally there is an abundance of sattva guna in the environment that will support the sadhana, the time of sunrise, all of these. And so as far as possible, the sadhana sthana must be in a place where there are little to no distractions. This is important for us to be able to have that willpower to continue. Remember, this doesn't mean that, that you can only go, you have to only look out for a place somewhere isolated. This is a very beautiful verse that I want to call your attention to here. What it says is that Kama krodhau anirjitya kim aranye karishyati. If you haven't mastered your fear, your anger, and your lust, what will you do in a forest? Your mind is going to follow you. For those who have mastered athava nirjitau etau kim aranye karishyati, the same words are repeated. If you have mastered your kama, the desire and the anger, what will you do in the forest? It doesn't matter where you are, because your mind is under control. The idea is that you create an ambience, but you are not dependent on that ambience. You should be able to move into that quiet space internally, no matter what is happening outside. For which the uprooting of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, all these enemies internally, that you have to do, without which no sadhana is of any use. And so you see that there are different kinds of sadhana. And the sadhana varies depending on the shraddha of the aspirant. There is mridu, mild, madhya, moderate, adhimatra, very intent, adhimatra tama, the highest level, unswerving in shraddha. And we fall into different categories. One of the highest in terms of sadhana, I would say, is Dhruva, the story of the child, young child, 5 years, who is a very long story. He is born to the second wife. His father is a king, Uttanapada, and his mother is his second wife. And so the child is always pushed to the sidelines by the child of the first wife. And so one day Dhruva wants to sit on his father's lap. And his stepmother says, you don't have the right, because you were not born to me. And the child is very sad. So he goes to his mother and he basically asks her, what can I do to make my father love me? And she says, see, you can direct your appeal to the source of this universe. Who is that source? Narayana. And so this child goes into the forest resolute, because his only intention is one. He is a child of 5. His mother has told him, find this Narayana, meditate on this Narayana. He goes into the forest. He is wandering there, and Narada comes and says, you're such a young child. What are you seeking? And he says, I need to meditate and find this Narayana for this purpose. So Narada is taken aback at that resolute quality of the child. And so he initiates him into the Narayana Mula Mantra. It's called the Ashtakshari, Om Namo Narayanaya, or it is called the Dwadashakshari, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That is another form of the mantra. And the child meditates without the slightest distraction. Narayana appears, blesses him, and says that, and the child by now, because of that power of tapas, says, I don't, is ready to renounce his life. Where Narayana says, no, you have to go back, you continue, you will be a righteous ruler. When you finish your rule, you will become I will take you into my heaven as the pole star. Dhruva, that which is steadfast. This is the story. Leave the story, look at the significance, that idea of sadhana. And so Dhruva demonstrates that exemplary state of Shraddha and tapas. The rest of us, we fall in various different categories. But the tapas, that sadhana is important. One aspect of sadhana is tapas, or such vratas like Ekadashi. And here on the path of sadhana, the teacher is very important, because mere bookish knowledge is no use. You can pustake likita vidya yena sundari japyate siddhirna jayate tasya kalpakoti shatairapi. You might be able to study thousands of shastras. You might be able to chant them very beautifully. It is of no use without the guidance of a teacher, of a competent master, because that can instantly ease our journey. This is why in the Navaratri, we looked at the role of the Guru on this path. And so you see that if a room is really dark, you might use a candle or a torchlight or a small lamp. It will remove a little bit of the darkness. But for the night itself to vanish collectively for the universe, what is needed is the arising of the sun, which is nothing but an analogy for the truth. When the truth of the self arises in your mind, then there is no klesha, nothing, there is no ignorance anymore. That can be given only by a guru. So we see in the Yoga Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, all the texts, there is great emphasis on Abhyasa, Vairagya. Abhyasa is another term for sadhana. It is the effort needed to bring you to a state of clarity, of attention, of nirodha, requires consistent practice. Whatever that practice is, it could be a physical practice, spiritual practice, whatever it is, the sadhana is important. When that well-directed sadhana is done, naturally a certain vairagya will develop of its own. What is that vairagya? To stay away from distraction. See, even to do this course, 15 days, requires a certain abhyasa and a certain vairagya. There will be many engagements that come our way. To be able to choose and say, I'm going to do this and not that, itself is a sign of vairagya. And so you see that sadhana or abhyasa is everything that you do. The asana, the pranayama, the japa, the way you conduct yourself, the way you eat, the way you sleep, your lifestyle, your discipline. All this is the sadhana. And here specifically in the yoga path, we see Ashtanga Yoga as the path of sadhana. That will lead to Vairagya. Vairagya will further support the resolve for the next step in sadhana. The cycle continues until Abhyasa and Vairagya reach you permanently to the state of Kaivalyam. That is the story of the repeating cycle of Navaratri. Now, one such idea, this is tapas. The power of tapas is extremely important. What is tapas? It is a voluntary disciplining of the body, of the mind, of the sensory faculties and speech. And we see that tapas becomes the very first component of Kriya Yoga, as well as one of the niyamas in the Yoga Sutra. Tap, the word tap means to burn. What do you burn? To burn, you need fire. You need to create a certain energy that will eliminate certain unwanted qualities in your body, in your mind, in your senses. And Vyasa, in his commentary to Yoga Sutra 2.1 says, if you don't do this tapas, you can't attain perfection, because we are indisciplined because of our attachment to so many objects in our world. And we experience so many things because of our vasanas. They are subliminal impressions. And so it is necessary to embark on tapas, to slowly distance ourselves from all these entanglements. But here when we say tapas, immediately, there are visions of horrific tapas, self-injury, hitting yourself, fasting unto death and things like this. The commentaries are very clear. Yoga Vartikam tells us, That tapas which is of a gentle nature. Tapaha chitta prasada avirodhi. The tapas that you do should not be a virodhi, should not be an enemy to your chitta prasada. The tapas that we embark on should not negatively impact the quietude of the mind. If that is done, then it will lead to clarity. Tapas that causes self-harm, therefore, is not considered the best form of tapas. And further, I will share these slides. This is just for your reference. That what is this tapas? The right way of thinking, full control over the emotions, a thorough understanding of moral values, what is ethical and what is not. Through this, a process of self-purification, purification of the mind. Any effort made to let go of our constant hankering of pleasure, fulfillment, gratification of the senses, all efforts made to discipline the body. This is apart from asana, pranayama, puja, upasanas, anything that is done to bring in some discipline is considered tapas. And tapas you will see is an essential part of all our activities, not just yoga sadhana. Even if you have to cook something, there is a process of cleansing. You have to wash the vegetables. You need to prepare the grain or whatever it is that you do, even whatever one consumes. There is a process of tapas, of cleansing before a task can be taken up. So the tapas is very important. Shankara also tells us, this is Shankara Bhashyam to Yoga Sutra 2.1. It is because of the coloring of the mind. We are trapped in a net. There is a net of delusion woven by the various sensory objects. It cannot be removed unless there is self-discipline, self-restraint. It comes from the mind. How, and Shankara asks us, how can a mind in which the kleshas are not eliminated attain samadhi? It is not possible. Therefore, tapas is presented to enable clarity of the mind. However, if the very tapas prevents clarity, then it defeats its own purpose. So therein we have that idea of what tapas should be. The Bhagavad Gita, I'll ask you to go to this chapter to check it out, chapter 17. From verse 14 to 19 of the Bhagavad Gita speaks in detail about tapas. Specifically, it speaks about sharira tapas, the tapas that one does for the body, tapas that we do for the speech. So what are these forms? The ability to be reverential to the gods, to the brahmanas, to the ones who are learned, to our teachers, to those who are wise. Shaucham, to maintain cleanliness. Arjavam, steadfastness, that that forthrightness. Brahmacharyam, moderation. Ahimsa, kindness, non-injury to all creatures. This is the tapas of the body. Tapas of the speech, to speak without agitation. Anudvega karam vakyam, very gentle speech, speaking of truth in a manner that is pleasant, along with swadhyaya, the recitation of mantras. All of this is the tapas of vak, speech. Tapas of the mind, manaprasada, keeping the mind in a calm, pleasant disposition, always with beauty. The mind has to be a beautiful space. This is why we spoke about building up that garden. Maintenance of silence and self-restraint. Bhava samshuddhi, the cleanliness of our thoughts, our intentions have to be purified. All this is tapas of the mind. Further, Bhagavad Gita tells us that the highest form of tapas is done by that which is sattvika, full of shraddha, positive shraddha, done simply because it has to be done without any expectation of a reward, any anticipation of a certain goal, or without any claiming of the ownership of those results. That is the highest form of tapas. A moderate tapas, more rajasic in nature, is where it is done with pride. It is done with that sense of recognition, seeking recognition, to be known as a tapasvi. And so that is a rajasika tapas, middling. And the lowest form of tapas is done out of delusion, causing self-harm, yet pidaya kriyate, to torment yourself, and is born of delusion. That is considered to be a tamasika tapas. So the idea is, highest level of shraddha, positive shraddha, leads you on the path where you understand the truth, and you keep walking this path of sadhana until the obstacles that remain in your path towards understanding the truth, all those have to be removed, at which point the truth will shine of its own. Now, specifically Ekadashi, the 11th day of the waxing and waning fortnights, is considered to be very potent time-wise. That muhurta, it's about 12 hours or so approximately, sometimes more. It depends on how the alignment, planetary alignments are, the star alignments. But Ekadashi Tithi is considered to be very powerful for engaging in tapas, different types of vrata, one of which is a vrata of fasting. Some people might also take up mauna, to be silent. Now, there is a beautiful story behind the Ekadashi. It is usually associated with Mahavishnu, Narayana. In this context, understand Narayana to be supreme, Paramapurusha, Ishvara. And so the story goes that there was an asura, demonic entity called Mura, was tormenting the world, the sages, the devas, everybody. Again, this cycle will come again and again. Remember, the demons sit in your mind only. And so all the gods, sages appeal to Mahavishnu, Narayana, seeking some relief. So Narayana immediately rushes forth to fight. The battle continues, and there are different versions. So most versions say that this battle continues for thousands of years, and this asura is showing no inclination of being tired, fatigued, or defeated. And so Narayana withdraws deliberately into a cave, into a state of yoga nidra. This is nothing but a state of deep dhyanam, samadhi. And as he does so, he withdraws all his senses, the mind, the pranas, everything are withdrawn and held, and Narayana is in a state of yoga nidra. Just to misguide the asura, who shows no signs of fatigue. At that point, when Mahavishnu is in a state of yoga nidra, his Shakti, from in that state where the mind and senses are withdrawn, a certain power emanates, a feminine power emanates. She takes on this asura. Again, there are many versions. She fights and she kills him. There are some versions that say that she only utters the sound hum. Humkara, it's called. And as she does that humkara, he becomes ashes. There are many representations. And then at that point, Narayana awakens from his yoga nidra and blesses her and says, what do you want? You have done this. And she says, I'm only your power. I have come out of you from your state of yoga nidra. And so I want to be remembered I want to give me the status of becoming a tithi. One of the tithis, from the Amavasya to the Purnima, she asked for the boon of being a tithi so that on that tithi, everyone remembers Narayana. And so this is the backstory. There are many variants to the story. But remember that it is a day of great spiritual potency in the environment itself. And so that wish is granted. And then many people take up verbs. Usually the most highest level of vrata is considered to be nirjala, where you fast the whole day without even a sip of water. Some others might fast with water, sajala, just water and maybe fruit juices. Yet others fast by consuming only fruits, but not consuming any grains or cereals. This depends on the individual sadhaka. Now, if you look at the science behind this, there are many papers available on the internet as well. Please search for this, that this is not merely a superstitious belief. There is the idea about the pressure that is exerted by the moon because of the gravitational pull of the earth, both on full moon and new moon, which we see is what causes a certain difference in the tide patterns as well. Now, there is this observation that on the 11th day of both the waxing and waning fortnight, that pressure that is exerted by the moon on the body is least. And therefore, that is a day that is conducive for fasting. Because on other days, when you fast, there might be certain harmful implications to the body. But on the Ekadashi, because of the least pressure or the pull of the because of the gravitational relationship that is least on the Ekadashi Tithi, and therefore conducive for fasting. And this is another science, and therefore it is a very good cleanse that happens for the system once every fortnight. And Ayurveda highly recommends. Today we speak of intermittent fasting. The Ekadashi has been observed for millennia in India and many other cultures as well, because it is a period for detoxifying the entire system, specifically the gut. Because now we understand that the source of all diseases is a dysfunction at the region of the gut. And so to go completely off anything that is difficult to digest is a way of cleansing the entire digestive system, the liver, and then there is a renewal. Naturally, where those who have health issues, pregnant pregnant women, feeding, lactating mothers, they are all exempted. Nothing is done with an intention of torturing oneself. It has to be done with a willing mind. And it is my personal experience for many years that while on other days, when suppose you skip a meal or your meal is delayed, you will feel hungry, you will feel tired, and you go very far without this, very long without eating, you might feel very fatigued or weak. On Ekadashi, I have personally experienced it. I have done the Nirjala fast several years of not even drinking a sip of water. You don't feel anything at all. You don't even feel that need to eat something. If you try it, you will understand what I mean. That is the potency of Ekadasha. It is one other component in the sadhana path, something that helps us to, because normally our thoughts are about, what do I eat for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner? I want this, I want that. That need to gratify the senses. But when it is Ekadashi, okay, there's no food. Nothing, I'm not going to eat, which means there is so much space now available to direct towards sadhana. That is the purpose of all these vratas. There are many such vratas prescribed. Ekadashi holds a very important position there. And so today is the Shukla Paksha of the waxing fortnight. There are many important events that occur on Ekadashi. Gita Jayanti, the Gita is given to Arjuna on an Ekadashi. The Vishnu Sahasranama is given by Bhishma to Yudhishthira on an Ekadashi. So there are many other significances with regard to Ekadashi. So we move on to the practice. Today your practice will focus on the Ashtakshari. Ashtakshari, the 8-syllabled mantra. Om Namo Narayanaya. That is 8. This is the Ashtakshari mantra as presented in the Narayana Upanishad, the Atharva Shiropanishad. Now here, who is this Narayana? Yes, within the Sanatana Dharma tradition, yes, Narayana is associated with a certain form that we call Mahavishnu, associated with Lakshmi. But it is important to go beyond that, beyond just that form. Narayana, Narana Mayanam, the final destination of all beings. What is it? It is the soul. It is the Atma. Narayana represents that which is eternal, that which is beyond the cycle of birth, life, and death. Purusha. But for Purusha to manifest, because Purusha is by itself Satchitananda, how will Purusha manifest? It needs to be in conjunction with matter. Consciousness has to come into contact with matter, and that has to be energized with prana, energy. And only then the process of creation can begin, which is why Lakshmi Narayana are always shown together. They are representation of Purusha Prakriti Tattva. And here, this is a form I've shown you before, Lakshmi Narayana. He is the master of time, holding the sun and the moon in his hands. The Shankha and the Chakra. Shankha represents the unbroken knowledge tradition, the sound tradition. The Chakra is a weapon that can destroy, cut through all obstacles in our sadhana. And you have Mahalakshmi. She is Prakriti. She is the best over. We saw yesterday. She's everything. She's both terrifying as well as benevolent. Why? Because that is at the Mula Prakriti level. We have to attain that level of equality, of balance. Equanimity has to be attained. For this, you need a teacher. That is represented by Garuda. Krishnamacharya gives us this very beautiful, just a single 2-line verse. Marut Hari Rama Tarkshya Bijam Sankalanat Yogam. He says the word yoga is made up of certain syllables. Ya, A, U, Ga. So Ya, A, U becomes O and you have Ga. Ya represents the principle of prana. Marut, the winds that blow. Hari, Rama. So you have A, U representing Purusha Prakriti. Ga is Garuda. Who is Garuda? Garuda is the teacher. Garuda is the teacher who leads us to an understanding of that ultimate truth of Purusha and Prakriti. How? Using the resource of the breath. Because without the breath, there is no access to the Atma. The breath is the closest companion. And so using the vehicle of the breath, the teacher leads us towards this realization. That is how yoga is presented by Krishnamacharya. This is going to be the focus for the practice today, both because it's Ekadashi and also because of the power of that mantra as presented in the Narayana Upanishad. So now we move on to a practice. I'd like you to first sit comfortably. I will leave the screen on. Keep your back straight, eyes closed. Take a few deep breaths. Now for the asana component, we are going to use, I'm just going to build up the mantra, Om Narayanaya Namaha. Later we will use Om Namo Narayanaya during the visualization. So please just repeat after me so that the words are familiar. Om Namaha. Please chant. Om Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. This is the mantra we will use. The asana sequence that I'd like you to do is seated in Vajrasana. I've given you the image because where I'm seated, I'm not able to demonstrate. If I demonstrate, you can't see me. So I've given you the image. You sit in Vajrasana. On the inhale, raise your arms up. As you bend forward, you will chant into Vajrasana. Then from there, on your inhale, slide forward, move into a sort of a Bhujangasana, Urdhva Mukha Shvanasana combination. You can either keep the knees on the floor, or if you're comfortable, you lift them. Both are fine. You move forward and arch. Then again, as you chant, return to the Vajrasana forward bend position. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, sit. When you sit down, please you start in this position, go up, bend down. Throughout, you try to keep your fingers held together, palms together, with the intention of surrender. Remember, sadhya, what is to be attained is already within you. You have to first accept it, surrender to that truth. Only then the next steps will start leading you on that path. So with that intention of a surrender, of an offering, to whom? To whoever it is that you consider supreme. The term Narayana is a generic term. It does not mean only Vishnu. It means the final destination. You can call it Narayana, you call it Shiva, you call it Jesus, you call it anything. It doesn't matter. Depending on your belief, your faith, to that entity you offer. The mantra used is Om Namo Narayanaya, Narayanaya Namo Namah. So I will chant for you on your inhalation. You will repeat on your exhalation. We will do 2 for every line, 2 cycles of the movement for every mantra. Sit comfortably, back straight, eyes closed. If possible, do the whole thing with your eyes closed. As you bend forward, visualize surrender. As you move forward to inhale, visualize a moving in to receiving the grace of this Narayana, to connecting, to bringing that Narayana into our hearts. Again, as you bend down, offer your surrender. Inhale. Om Namaha. Please bend down and chant. Om Namaha. Inhale, slide forward. Om Namaha. Return to Vajrasana as you chant. Om Namaha. Inhale on your knees, arms above. Om Namaha. Sit down. Om Namaha. Again, inhale. Om Namaha. Please bend down. Om Namaha. Inhale. Om Namaha. Om Namaha. Inhale. Om Namaha. Om Namaha. Sequence remains the same. Now I use the second mantra. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Please bend down. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. One more time. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Chant. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. We move on to the third mantra, slightly longer. So please take a deeper breath as you inhale. You chant the mantra as you exhale. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Please bend down. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Return to Vajrasana. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Inhale and come up. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Lower the arms as you sit down. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. One last time. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Bend down. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Exhale, chant. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayana Namo Namaha. Om Narayana Namo Namaha. Please sit comfortably. Back straight, eyes closed. Allow your breathing to settle down first. We will do a little bit of pranayama before we move on to the bhavana. Inhale and exhale. We will use the same 3 mantras. Just progressively. You don't have to chant. I want you to only breathe. I will chant for you. I'd like you to just keep the length of your breathing to the length of my chant. Progressively make it as slow, as smooth as possible. Your focus has to be only on connecting to that principle called Narayana, the supreme truth. As you inhale, just visualize, inviting that. That is already there. It is within you. But invoke that so that you are aware of that presence of that light. As you exhale, just exhale, offering your surrender, your sublimation to that entity. I will chant throughout for you the same mantras on your inhale and your inhale. Om Namaha. Exhale. Om Namaha. 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 Breathe in a little longer, deeper now. Om Narayana Namaha. Exhale. Om Narayana Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayana Namaha. Om Narayana Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayana Namaha. Om Narayana Namaha. Inhale. Om Narayana Namaha. Om Narayana Namaha. Try to make your breath even longer. Keep it as smooth as possible. As you inhale, just reach out to that entity, Narayana. As you exhale, surrender. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. 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 Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Now continue to keep your breath as slow and deep as possible. Just listen to me. There is a certain bhavana that is presented in the Narayana Suktam, which I would like you to use for the practice today. Padma Kosha Pratikasham Hridayam Chapyadhomukam. So, Adho Nishtyavidastyantu Nabhyam Upari Tishtati. Here, the Narayana Suktam tells us about the location of Narayana. Where is this Narayana? It directs our attention inwards and it says, in the region of the heart, you can envision a downward facing lotus bud. Lotus bud, it is Adho Mukha, facing down. It is below the throat and yet above the navel, roughly in the middle, in the region of the chest, in the region of the sternum approximately. You can envision this downward facing lotus. Hridayam tat vijaniyat vishwasya ayatanam mahat. This space, this lotus-like structure is called the Hridaya, which is the dwelling place of the Supreme, the one that holds the universe, dwells in your heart. Now, what do you envision here? This lotus-like structure is suspended on all directions by the subtlest network of nadis, the subtle channels through which prana flows. Santatam shirabhistu lambatya kosha sannibam tasyante sushiram sukshmam tasmin sarvam pratishtitam. So a lotus downward facing in the heart space, it is suspended there by thousands of fine fibers. In the center of this lotus, there is this small filament or a nadi or a channel that is called the sushumna, golden channel that runs exactly through the midpoint of this lotus. Tasya madhye, in the midst of that, Mahanagnir Vishwarchir Vishwatomukha. In the midst of this fine golden filament shines a flame. Right? So, position in the heart, downward facing lotus, suspended on all directions by the nadis. In the center is this small flame that blazes. And this flame is what is heating up the whole body. Sogra bhugvi bhajan tishtan aharam ajarakavi. It is for this, for the nourishment of this flame, that we consume food. Everything goes for the nourishment of this. Santapayati swam deham apada talamastakam. The warmth, the maintenance of the body is given by this flame. It warms up the body from head to toe. Tasya madhye vanhi shikha. One flame, the central flame. Imagine a large blazing fire, large in the sense that large for that space. Because we are already speaking of a lotus-like structure. Thin filament, one single filament, in the midst of that is the fire. The tip of the central flame to the dimensions of the smallest atom. Aniyordhvavyavastitaha, tiny spark. How does the spark appear? Neelato yada madhyastat vidyulle kheva bhasvara nivara shukavatanvi pita bhasvatva nupama. Like a streak of lightning in the midst of dark storm clouds, or like the tip of a grain of rice that just peeks through the husk. Like that, Paramatma, that Supreme Narayana, is visible. So this is the visual that I want you to hold. That is Sabrahma, Sashiva, Sa Indra, Sa Akshara Paramaswara. That flame, that spark is the supreme that rules over your inner universe. That is the truth. That is the supreme. I want you to envision that little tiny spark. So I repeat, lotus bud, downward facing, suspended on all directions by the network of nadis. Through its center runs a fine golden filament like channel. In the midst of that is a beautiful flame, golden in color. At the very tip of the central flame, minute like an atom, is a spark of the most dazzling gold, which is the seat of Narayana. That is the Narayana within. Just hold this visual, connect to this inner truth through this visual for a few minutes. Just visualize that spark of light glowing brightly within you. Now, please hold on to the same visualization. Try to maintain it through the next few minutes, where I will be chanting from the Narayana Upanishad. It's a very beautiful text that speaks about the mantra Om Namo Narayanaya, and it says everything is Narayana. What is outside, what is within, what is above, what is below, what is day, night, everything is Narayana, the earth, the heavens. So I will keep chanting, and it also says that this Narayana is in the form of the Pranava. Narayana is the supreme entity, the Brahman. As I chant, after every line, I will stop. I'd like you to chant Om Namo Narayanaya. I will keep the mantra on my screen in case you need it. I'd like you to just keep the same visual. Please don't let go of the visual of light. The visual is very important. The mantra you will chant is Om Namo Narayanaya. I will chant from the Narayana. So just hold on, visualize the light that is within, visualize a connection to that light, and just listen to me and chant. Om Atha Nityo Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Brahma Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Shivascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Shakrascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Dyava Prithivyo cha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Kalascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Deshascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Vidishascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Urdhvascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Adhascha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Antarbahishcha Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Narayana Evedagum Sarvam. Om Namo Narayanaya. Yat bhutai yatcha bhavyam. Om Namo Narayanaya. Nishkalo Niranjano Nirvikalpo Nirakhyata Shuddho Deva Eko Narayanah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Nadvitiyosti kaschit. Om Namo Narayanaya. Ya evam veda. Om Namo Narayanaya. Savishnureva bhavati. Savishnureva bhavati. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Pratyaganandam Brahma Purusham Pranavaswarupam. Om Namo Narayanaya. Akara Ukara Makara Iti. Om Namo Narayanaya. Tani Katha Samabharatadetadom Niti. Om Namo Narayanaya. Yamuktva muchyate yogi janma samsara bandhanat. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanayeeti mantropasakaha. Om Namo Narayanaya. Vaikuntha Bhuvana Lokam Gameshyati. Om Namo Narayanaya. Tadidam param pundarikam vijnanaghanam. Om Namo Narayanaya. Tasmat tadidavan matram. Om Namo Narayanaya. Brahmanyo Devaki Putro Brahmanyo Madhusudano. Om Namo Narayanaya. Just take a few deep breaths. Offer your gratitude, your prostrations to this light within that empowers you. That is the very cause, the support of all that you are and all that you do. Offer your gratitude, let go of the visual, bring your attention back to your breath. Stay in that space. Use this time for a little bit of reflection before you get up for your next activity. Thank you so much.